You know, breathing is so universal, it's so continuous that it's easy to forget about it until we don't have it, it's not there. I actually think about this right now in the COVID crisis, that people go into respiratory crisis and respiratory failure. Yeah. And I also think about breathing when Bill and I teach every summer in the mountains of New Mexico, 9,000 feet above sea level. And when we walk up the hill, boy, do we feel it, and it takes a few days for the whole body to kind of regulate to that elevation. And I just appreciate the breath, the ease of the breath at sea level in a different way. When I first began meditating, and probably I would say for probably the first 10 years of my practice, in the privacy of my mind, I thought about myself as a horrible meditator because I couldn't follow my breath. It was kind of embarrassing, actually, because it's such a simple instruction, but I really had a hard time following it. And I understood, why the breath was important and that it kept me alive. And yet, somehow, I still found the object itself to be quite boring. And the instructions that I was taught way back at the beginning were to follow the breath, to return to the breath. But that didn't teach me how to have a meaningful relationship to it. It was an object, and I objectified it, and I treated it clinically. The instructions told me where to place attention, but it didn't tell me how to care about it. It's effortful, it's work to have to attend to an object you don't care about or deeply know. And for me, my experience of breathing was superficial, was naive and immature. I hadn't really looked into it very closely. But to understand the usefulness of breathing, it is kind of good to think about it just from a very practical perspective, what its function is, why it's important in meditation. And I'm just going to list a few of them because I think it's just nice to think about. First is that we wouldn't be here without the breath. Bill mentioned that yesterday. It's an incredible wonder that we're breathing. And it's that we breathe, that we are alive and we are here right now. And the breath is considered a primary object because it is a constant companion and has been with us since the moment we were born. It's the first thing we do when we come out of the womb is we take a gulp of air. And the last thing that we do is expire air before we leave planet Earth. It's a good companion. There's not a lot of charge to the breath. That's also good news. We get charged up by our emotions, but the breath is kind of a neutral object, which is a great relief to the mind. The breath tethers us to the present moment, to here now. Breath and body live in real time. The mind, it's a time traveler. It goes here and there, back into the past, back into the future. Body and breath are in the present moment. So if the mind is focused on breathing, it's much harder for the mind to wander off into rumination and daydreaming. The breath gives us information about the well-being of the body and the mind. If the mind is thinking, the breath is going to change. The experience of breathing will change. The rate of it and the rhythm will change. If the body is stressed out, likewise, the breath will change. When the breath is shallow or fast or uneven, it's likely that we're stressed out. And if the breath is slow and easeful and settled, it's likely that we feel calm and relaxed. Finally, I think the most unique aspect of breathing is that breathing regulates this body-mind. It regulates the central nervous system. By focusing on breathing, I can shift out of fight-flight, out of that charge of reactivity, the sympathetic nervous system getting activated, And with a breath, I can begin to smooth out and smooth back into the parasympathetic system, which is about rest and calm and digest. So these are really useful things to kind of know and reflect upon, about the importance of the breath. But still, I'd say that that's not enough to kind of care about the breath. We have to get intimate with it and have more of an experience near perspective on breathing. And that's what I'd like to offer today. I'd like to offer us an opportunity to move from more of that casual perspective on the breath. Yeah, I've got the breath. I'm watching the breath. Yep, I'm watching it. To coming in and like, oh, how does it feel right now? What is that inhalation like?